Everybody, welcome to Powerhouse Arena's virtual events. My name is Chris. I'm the events coordinator, and tonight we are very proud to be hosting the launch of The Spirit of Music by Victor Wooten. Everybody who bought a book bundle, get a signed copy, and if you didn't, I'll share a link to buy a copy in the book in the chat, and everyone will be signed. Victor will be in conversation with Mark Kelley, and if you have any questions, you can use the chat or the Q&A. And they'll take your questions at the end of the event. We also have here Steve Bailey from Berkeley.
That's right.
And so I'll quick give introductions to Victor and Mark, and then I'll hand it over. Mark Kelley has been the full-time bass chair with the Roots since 2011. A gig he landed after being asked to sub for Christian McBride and Questlove's band Momenta Blues. After subbing in, he landed a gig back with Michael McDonald and Sarah Bareilles at the 4th annual Roots picnic. And a month and a half later, he was offered the full-time role with the Roots. And Victor L. Wooten is an American bass player, composer, producer, and 5-time Grammy Award winner, as well as an original member of the jazz and bluegrass band Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. He is also the author of The Parable, The Music Lesson, a spiritual search for growth through music. I'll hand it over now.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Chris. And I'll make sure everyone knows our good friend Steve Bailey, longtime friend, great bass player, 6-string fretless extraordinaire, and now the chair, the grand poobah of the bass department at Berklee College of Music. And we're glad that Steve could show up last minute. Yeah, that's you, man. That's you. And I see Steve a lot, so I'm gonna start with Mark, Mr. Mark Kelley. I haven't seen you in a while, man. How have you been?
Man. I'm good. It's been a while.
Yeah. I thought you might even be later getting here tonight because you're part of a pretty popular, important television show. Where'd you just come in from?
Just came from NBC, from the Tonight Show. It's
That's right.
It's you never know what's gonna happen there, man. So I mean, luckily everything went, really good. Everything was easy today. So we, it was a kind of, because of COVID, we're doing everything a little differently now. So we're not sitting in the studio for full tapings. We're just doing our segments and then getting out of there. So it kind of worked out today.
Oh, nice. But some kind of way they make it look like it's live and it's happening right then. They got us fooled.
Yeah, they do it. They know what they're doing. They're in the TV business, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Steve, you ever done anything like that? You ever done any of that late night TV stuff?
I never did. I've been on a couple of times with some of the artists I work with, and but I've always been amazed by Mark and so many others, going back to Joel DeBartolo from the Tonight Show.
Wow.
With Carson and John B. Williams from Arsenio Hall, and through the years, I've just been fascinated in talking to Will Lee for decades about his experience with Letterman. It's a fascinating gig you have, Mark. Man, we could do a whole webinar on just the skill sets that you gotta possess to pull that off.
Yeah, it's a fun gig.
Yeah. How long have you been doing it now?
I started in 2011, so I guess in August of 2011. So we're coming up on about 10 years.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah,
that's fun, man. That's I've been able to join you all on a couple of late night episodes, just sitting in with the band. I've been able to do that 2 times, I think, and it amazed me at the process of how you all do it. I won't go through all of that. But it's just amazing how you pull it off.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it takes a high level of musicianship to pull it off. Not anyone could just walk in there and unprepared, without rehearsal, a whole lot of rehearsal, and to really know what's going on, to be able to pull it off the way you all do. And I was there to witness it a couple of times.
Wow.
And you all are just high professional. And you know, that's kind of a segue into the book, or books plural, that I wrote. I have a new one that's out right now, The Spirit of Music. There it is. That's in focus. Um, and it seems like you all, whether you try or realize it or not, you are like evoking that spirit, or are in tune with it every night, because you all seem relaxed. And I really know what's going on behind the scenes. A lot of the times you don't know what music you're playing till you get there.
Right.
You may not know who the guests are, the musical guests. You probably didn't even know I was sitting in until that day. So now we got, you guys learned my music too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I knew you were gonna be sitting in the week that you were sitting. I knew that one beforehand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they let the bass players know. All right.
Yeah, they let me know that.
That's not something you just want to spring on somebody at the last.
No, it is not.
But it was very, very cool that I got there. You guys knew some of my music, which made me feel comfortable.
Mm.
You know, and I mean, it was just great, just walking in that, and I had no idea how it was going to work. I just knew I'd be sitting in with you all. It was going to be as live as they could make it live, meaning there's an audience there. And it's like, we're not going to redo it. Whatever
Right.
happens.
Yeah.
It might air later, but it's live in front of people.
Yeah.
And it was so funny that first time I did it. We were in a room, kind of like rehearsing, figuring out stuff. And the next thing I knew, I said, okay, it was like, okay, next thing. And I was like, okay, next thing,
Yeah.
Because we just touched on stuff. Touch on this, touch on that, next thing.
Yeah.
And what was so cool is being on stage live with you guys, and we all have the in-ears, the monitors, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there in front of a live group of people, and I hear this jam in my ears that we had done earlier that day.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And then next thing I know, Quest is counting it off, and that's what we're playing. It's like, you got to be on it. That was nice.
Yeah. It's definitely a gig like no other, but it's definitely a lot of fun. I remember that day. That was a good day.
Yeah. Cool. So anyway, I'll mention something about the spirit of music, because I think the three of us, we touch on that. We live there as much as possible. For a lot of people, music is a chore. It's something that I have to lock myself in a room and study all day. And but for us, we kind of live it. And of course, there's some days it doesn't seem like it's there, but other days it is. And actually, before I get into my side of things in the book, what would any of you two say? Like, if you hear the title or whatever, The Spirit of Music, what's that conjure up, Mark, in your mind?
The spirit of music, just just to hear the word spirit of music, to me, that always reference God, like something that God has breathed in life into something, and it's like it's a gift from God. To me, that's what that says to me. And I think that I heard somebody, I believe it was Danette, who said this to me earlier, and I absolutely agree that it's like the highest gift that you can get from God, and it's like it's singing praises to God when you do this, and this is like it's just a gift that I feel like that is one of the highest callings that God could ever bless somebody with.
Yeah, wow,
that's what it makes me think of.
I like that. Any thoughts, Steve? I went with Mark first because I know we've been together since I was writing the book, since I was writing the first book. And I don't want you to, to be biased. What do you think?
I'm all brainwashed. I'm Wooten washed for many years, and as long as we've been doing this, the spirit of music, whether it's a camp or whether it's a vibe or whether it's a discussion, I've just, it's like, it's almost like I can't explain it because I've lived it. I've been in it. You know, it's a feel. It's an observation. It's the essence of it. You know, all the notes and all these technical things about music. Maybe the spirit is these are all components. Maybe the spirit is what actually makes it music. You know, what brings it alive. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've seen and heard some things at your Spirit of Music camp that transcend reality. So that's a deep well to jump in. I'll just
Yeah.
say that I don't know what the Spirit of Music is, but it's like the Supreme Court justice said, "I know it when I hear it."
Mm.
Except it was
Mm.
he was talking about something else.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. It kind of gets hard to put it into words because it is beyond that. And for me, the spirit is something that's describable and indescribable. But I think it is the key, at least on this planet, on Earth, it is the key to all of life. There's a spirit behind it. But I believe that that spirit continues uh, whether life on this planet continues or not. So, like, in other words, when we're not playing music, the spirit of it is still there.
Mm-hmm.
When I don't hear it, the spirit of it is still there. In the same way, I think when something dies, the spirit of it is still there. You know, Steve, I know we just lost a good friend of ours yesterday, a great bass player, a great teacher, used to teach at Berkeley, Jim Stinnett. I just heard just passed away yesterday. A great teacher. He has influenced many people for many, many years. I don't know how many decades he taught at Berkeley. But I also know his son, Grant, and a bunch of people that, still play music and bass in the spirit of Jim. Jim's spirit will continue even though the flesh and blood of Jim maybe doesn't. And I think music is that way, and that the music spirit is strong because it's been here so long. But what I wrote about in this book, in a parable style or maybe in a fictional style, I took a bunch of real incidences and put it into a fictional tale to write about the questionality question, the fragileness of these days of the spirit of music. And really, if I were to speak just about me, I don't think as humans that we can do much to the spirit of music. I think the spirit is always going to be there. But we can and are doing something that determines how that spirit or if that spirit shows up on earth. In other words, the only way we can hear music is for it to turn physical. You know what? That's not true. That's not true. I can hear it in my head. You can't hear what I'm hearing, but it's there.
Mhm.
But when we go to a concert or when I play music, when I put on a record, there are physical vibrations that start, shaking the air, reaching our eardrums, touching our skin, making us want to dance. That's what I mean by physical. And that, I'll just stick with what the book says. That way I don't have to own up to any of it. I don't have to defend any of it. But in the story of the book, that physicality, what I'm calling in the book, the spirit of music, is dying. Is dying. And now I know I talked to you the other day, Mark, about what I meant by that. And, we traded some thoughts about what I meant by the spirit of music dying on earth, right? And
Mhm.
I'll start by saying this, and in the book, instead of making a lot of statements about what's happening, I try to raise a lot of questions.
Mhm.
And I'm going to pose a question right now. And people out there that are watching, feel free to type into the Q&A if you have questions, or even if you have comments, type it into the chat. But the thought that starts this book is this. If we look at live music, like if I go hear the Roots play live, let's say I say that's 12 inches, a full foot 12 inches when I hear the Roots live.
Mhm.
Then when I buy the vinyl, I might say that that's 8 inches. And a neuroscientist, Daniel Levitin, who wrote This Is Your Brain on Music, he helped me come up with this ratio. I didn't do this myself. I got a little bit of help to somebody who actually knows something. So listening live, 12 inches, vinyl, 8 inches. When we get a CD of the Roots, that's made up of waveforms now. So now we're in the digital world. I might say that that's 6 inches. Now, if I go buy the MP3 from the CD, if I just buy the MP3, I was told that an MP3 is only a tenth the size, 1/10 the size of a waveform. So if a waveform is 6 inches, right, what half of being live, that means an MP3 is a half an inch, 0.6 inches, half an inch. Take that half an inch, put it through tiny headphones or computer speakers, we may be down to a quarter of an inch. And here's what scares me, Mark. My kids and anybody else's kids out there probably think that that quarter of an inch is normal.
Mm. Mm.
So I'm 56. I remember when CDs came out and the promises around CDs, they were indestructible and all this kind of stuff that didn't hold up, right? But in my lifetime, in my short lifetime, we've gone from 12 inches, because 12 inches isn't normal anymore, right? Going to the live concert isn't normal.
Right.
A quarter of an inch is normal.
Yeah.
So that's scary to me.
Yeah.
And so in this book, music says, I'm dying. Music says I have more intimate relationship with computers than I do with humans.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, I'm putting it in a fictional tale, but I'm raising it as the question to the reader: what are we going to do about this?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much the thought, and I'm kind of curious as the listeners out there, too, what they think about that statement. I see Anthony Green has his hand raised. If your hand is raised, Anthony, just type to us in the chat or the question, and we will find you. I do see a question in there, and we'll get to it. But to me, I already know that what I think about it because I wrote a book about it. But I'm curious as to what anybody else, Steve or Mark, any thoughts about any of that?
Yeah, we often have these discussions a lot, and since we're all kind of confined to a hallway now, these conversations are happening a lot more than they were before. But I have to say that in popular, like I've been an avid hip hop listener for a very large portion of my life. I mean, I've listened to funk records, and I've loved funk music, gospel music, anything that can make anybody's feet move was always something that I've always been into. And we were having this discussion just about how there's just nothing sounds original in music. I can't really there's nothing that is making anything, that nothing is grabbing me. And at first I was thinking, is this because I'm just getting old? And I don't think that that's what it is. I don't think that it's because I'm getting older that I'm not able to be moved by what's happening. I think that the reason that I'm not being moved is because technology has made it that there's a lot less work involved in order to make music. Everybody's using the same technology. Michelle Ndegeocello, who's who I used to play in her band. When we were having this discussion, her quote was, a lot of people better hope that the power doesn't go out, because if it does, then where will that leave them? And I feel that music has just been deduced more and more to this place that just it's almost like it's like an iPhone. An iPhone gives you the ability to do these things effortlessly that people study to do. An iPhone can make you a great photographer. An iPhone you can write music on your iPhone. You can do all types of things with minimal effort that give really good. I mean, something that sounds really good if you were something that would take a lot more work to produce on your own without the aid of artificial intelligence. And
Sure.
so I just feel like we're constantly moving into this era, this time where artificial intelligence technology is kind of moving creativity and originality out of the way, and now we're just using machines to create these things, and it really has just killed everything. I mean, it can come back, and I mean, I think that as conscious musicians, you know, we have a responsibility to, you know, to how a guy on the show the other day had a song, and his quote was, "If I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna go down swinging." So that's kind of my thoughts about this. You know, like, even if we are gonna be defeated, then we're not, you know, we're gonna be defeated, but we're still gonna be giving it our all to try to bring back creativity and those things.
I like that. I like that. You know, any thoughts, Steve?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, but you know me, I'm rarely speechless, and honestly, I've read both books, and I've listened to both books, and usually I can talk about anything, but right now, I mean, I'm thinking of your new book and everything that y'all are saying, and then I've got a little like a Hollywood director mentality going on too, because even more so than your first book, this book it's an epic adventure. I mean, it's somewhere between The Matrix and I don't know what else. There's amazing chase scenes in there. I mean, I guess I'm just going to spin it around and pick on you. Is like your writing between the first book and the second book is like you 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 saw The Matrix and everything else after that, and Men in Black, and all of that is written into this book, but it's done in such a way that there's still a lesson being taught rather than being entertained. And I think that's the hallmark of an amazing writing. I think of being able to teach and entertain and kind of enthrall what's going on.
I appreciate that, both of you. And I think my story encompasses both of what you're saying, because since the writing of the first book, my parents have passed away. My mom passed away. My mom actually is the voice of music on the first audiobook for the music lesson. You know, and in the music lesson, the main character, which is sort of like my character, the narrator, has a conversation with music. And this is in the book, The Music Lesson. And if you listen to that audiobook of the music lesson, you hear my mom's voice. She is the voice of music. And so my character has this conversation with her, and she's saying that I'm weak, I'm dying. You know, people don't feel me anymore. You know, and that's where she actually says I have a more intimate relationship with computers than I do with humans these days. Well, my mom went down swinging. She seems like she was born swinging. She knew what she and her kids were facing. Uh, you know, I was going to say in America, but really on the planet. And now that she has passed on, I've become more bold to say what I felt needed to be said, whether you wanted to hear it or not. Because that was one of my mother's quotes was, "I'm not saying this because you're going to like it. I'm saying it because you need to hear it." And it's sad to me that with all the studies that have been done surrounding music, showing that if children start learning music young, they grow up more socially connected. I can't think of the right words. They know when to talk, when to listen, right? Like in music, we all play bass, but when we get in the band, nobody tries to make us into a flute, right? They recognize you're a bass player, be a bass player. You know, right? So they recognize in music, we recognize our differences and celebrate them for who you are. We don't try to change that. We let you be what you are. And we know that the music is better when all the instruments are different, not the same. So music teaches kids and teaches adults, rather, everyone to recognize and celebrate our differences how to listen. Kids know when to listen, when to speak, knowing that all voices are necessary for the whole band to be a band. You know, all of these things that are taught. It's been shown over and over in studies that that learning music as a child helps you learn math, reading, and all of these other things. Nothing against sports. I love sports, but I've never seen the study that says playing football helps you in math. Haven't seen that study yet. But I've seen multiple ones that say playing football will help you. I'm sorry, that playing music, rather. That playing music will help you. You know, I mean, more money will be made in college football and stuff like that. But if it's about money, then we're on the right track. But if it's about real education, we need to ask more questions, you know? And I think that's what I'm trying to do with these books is, especially in this one, The Spirit of Music. I want to poke you in your side a little bit, make you a little bit uncomfortable, to make you question, to make you think. Well, the first book was happy. You know, yeah, I can play music. I didn't even know I could play. This is going to be fun and easy. It's what I wanted, to draw you in. But now that you're in with us, we're going to ask some questions. We're going to look at some things. You know, the same way the fact that I can buy a liter of Coca-Cola, that I can buy a liter of Coca-Cola cheaper than I can buy a little 8-ounce bottle of water. Okay. Now, how can we let that happen without it being happening on purpose for some reason? So in this book, there's a group of people called the phasers, right? And we are musicians. We know what happens when a signal is out of phase, right? The quality of the signal just diminishes. Well, in this book, The Spirit of Music, there's a group of people that's called the phasers. And the phasers, with their magical headphones, can put music out of phase, and it's happening all around the world. So these three characters, which my character is one, as well as Ali from Africa and Seiko from Japan, they just meet somehow, and they're on their way to Music City, which happens to be Nashville, Tennessee, to help eradicate the phasers. They don't quite know what they're doing, but they figure it out. It's the phasers that are making it happen. So in my opinion, my fictional opinion, I should say, to keep myself safe, it's the phasers that are making sure that the bottle of Coke is cheaper than the bottle of water. Except they're doing it to music. They're making sure that as powerful as music is, the phasers are doing their best to get rid of it. And if I was going to speak about it with my unfictional brain, I would say, well, we know that learning music as a kid makes the rest of the academics better and easier. So why are we taking music out of schools? Why are we making it harder to learn music? You have to pay for after school programs. You know, you have to pay extra for your child to learn music, but we still have all the sports in schools and all of that. We make that easy. And so to me, there's a possible real life version of the phasers going on. But I write it as fiction just to raise the question.
Right.
And I'll shut up for a minute before I get myself in more trouble.
Hey, Vic, you're going down the rabbit hole, brother, and it's comfortable down here. It's scary, but it's comfortable. You said something that just jogged my memory all the way back to yesterday, and I'm able to go back that far. And but Sandro, our assistant chair in the Berkeley bass department, sent us both this article, and the headline of it is "Want Smarter Kids? Teach Music, Not Coding," according to MIT.
MIT.
The math and coding capital of the world says if you want smarter kids, teach music. Yet we take it out of the schools, and that's something else. But Brandon Blake asked in the chat. He says, "Is music at half an inch better than no music at all?" And it's a perfect analogy off Coke and water. yeah, if you're gonna die of thirst and all you have to drink is Coke, drink Coke. But eventually it's going to kill you, the Coke. It's not nutritious. It is that half an inch as opposed to water, which is the perfect stuff that's been around, as long as the world has. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
I like that. And Brandon is a good one. It's a great question from Brandon Blake. Brandon Blake is a young musician that I met. Actually, first met him at our own camp. You know Brandon very well, Steve. I'm not sure if you're
Right.
recognizing the name, but Brandon. The one thing I like, well, many things I like about Brandon, but Brandon asks questions. And I know Brandon could answer that question, but he asks it knowing that people need to hear it. And I thank you for that, Brandon. Brandon actually, I'll just say this: there's a character in this new book, The Spirit of Music, whose name is Brandon, and so it's quite of a coincidence that Brandon happens to be here today. But yeah, I'll go ahead and say I patterned this character after the same Brandon Blake that asked that question. I made a character based off of him that's in the book. Brandon, if I could tell his story, Brandon uh, was hit while riding his bicycle many, many years ago, was in a coma, and was possibly not going to make it, probably not supposed to make it, but he did. And so he is now saying that he lives in bonus time.
Wow.
Yeah, but we all live in bonus time. But Brandon is the one that knows it. We all don't, not all of us realize that. So I thank you for that question, Brandon. And Steve, I thank you for your answer. You answered it much better than I would have. I like that. But here's another thought from Kobe up here. You also, Kobe says, "How do you think me as a young musician can change the norm of this half an inch?" Right? How can we change the norm of this half an inch theory for myself and other kids my age? I know that I have thoughts about that, which is why I wrote the book. But any thoughts about that? Anybody?
I mean, for the one thing that always comes to mind to me is that doing your part. You were called to do what it is that you do as a musician. I often think that that our communication with God is, God communicates to us through our brains. And a thing that I often ask for when I pray is for God to order my steps for success or whatever. And sometimes I find myself, I buy something, I meet somebody, I do a simple phone call, whatever it may be, and not even thinking anything about it, but somehow later on, there's some connection from something that I did that had an end result later on. Like even for me ending up in the Roots, like there was, I could go on forever, but I think that, we have our calling, and I think that it's, as a thank you for having this calling, is just for us to do just that we were called to do. So whether it be that you're a drummer and you're playing drums, play your drums and keep playing your drums, and eventually there are other things that will come. One of those if you build it they will come type of mentalities. Like you have to just continue to do your part for your calling, and I think that that's what's going to what will combat that. You don't sometimes, some of us are, I think that our parts as soldiers in an army or whatever it is that we are we don't know what these things are for. And sometimes, some people think that my calling is to be a musician, to be famous, to be rich, and that might not be it. Like your specific purpose may be just for that kid at your church to see you play, to spark them, for them to go and pick up an instrument and form their own band, or however it's supposed to go. But I think that the way that you do it is, if you're a musician, you're playing your instrument, you're singing, whatever you're doing, just to do that and to continue to do that, and to try to do that with as many people as you can, to try to inspire people, be as good as you can, be the best of yourself. I think that's the best way that you can combat that.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, thank you, Mark. Any thoughts about that, Steve? You have a teenage daughter.
Well, yeah, and I don't think music is bad now. I think there's some great music being made. I just
Absolutely.
encourage people at Berkeley or anywhere is authenticity. You know, I think if we all looked inside for what we should be playing rather than looked outside at what other people think we should be playing, I think there's a bit of a cure in and of that, you know, to be yourself, literally, musically, and so much music is being made out of expectations. I think this is just my opinion, and that you can tell by how short lived it is. It's like a donut, you know, or it just you eat it and you get the sugar buzz off of it and it's gone and there's no nutrients in it. There's nothing, even as good as it tasted. We could eat donuts till we passed out. They're so good, but there's not much nutritional value. Now, I'm not the one to decide what part of music is has nutritional value, but I do think that just like cooking food or anything, is authenticity and honesty in what you're doing is a big part of it.
I like that. Yeah, I think to Kobe, one of the questions we can always ask is, uh, can I make this more real? In other words, if I'm eating French fries, what's more real than French fries? What are French fries made out of? Potatoes. How about I just go eat a potato? Where did this potato come from? The grocery store. That's nice. That's a real potato. How can I make this more real? Where did that potato at the grocery store come from? A garden. Oh, can I get a potato from a garden? Right? Then all of a sudden it's somebody else's garden. Make it more real. You planted the seed. It's your garden. So how much more real can I make this? Not that any part of it is bad, but it will become more real to you the more real you make it and approach it. And that to me is what music is missing. We are on the outskirts of where music really is, right? And that's why, you don't have to play it, but if you do, you get a chance to experience music from the inside, right? And for me, I'm an electric bass player, but what's more real than my electric bass? At first it started from hearing electric bass players. Then it went to going to see an electric bass player. That's a little more real. Then it went to learning to play the electric bass. That's a lot more real. But then I learned where the electric bass came from. The stand-up bass, that's even more real. So there's always that question for me is, how can I make this more real, right? I hear my mother's voice on a cassette. That's nice. But then I call her on the phone. That's a little more real, but that ain't enough. I need to take a trip to go see her, and then I see her through the front door. There's a pane of glass. That's nicer. But then I open the door and I'm talking to her. That's more real. But then I got to get closer. I got to hug her and kiss her. That's more real. That's what I'm looking for. Not so much me looking for. I think music is looking for that. Music is waiting for you to hug her, to kiss her, right? Not to just put on headphones by yourself and think you know who she is. When you get a group like The Roots that makes this heartfelt music, but then I go to whatever listening platform and I listen to 10 seconds, 20 seconds of a song, and I download the few songs that I want and listen to them by myself in my headphones. But I say, have you heard the new Roots record? And you've heard a piece of a few songs and you say, yeah, I've heard it. No, you haven't.
Yeah, I heard 99 cents worth,
Right.
One track. Yeah, I know it.
Out of order.
Yeah.
Out of order. You don't download scenes from a movie and watch them out of order and then say you saw the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So for Kobe, I say make it as real as you can. When you write a song, make it really you. Right. That's what Willie Nelson does. That's what Bob Dylan does. That's what Michael Jackson did. Right. Make it really you. We like those three people I made, just named Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, Michael Jackson. We like them because there's no one else in the world like them.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like Willie Nelson because he sounds like this other person. Willie Nelson doesn't sound like anybody. And when Willie Nelson sings, do you really think he cares what you think about his voice? Willie Nelson is being real, and that realness penetrates whatever you think about him.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm talking about. And I believe that's what music is looking for, is to be real. And in many cases, we want to be, and we're taught to be first like someone else.
Mhm.
You have to learn how to play like me first, because I'm the teacher, right? But when you learn to speak, you learn to speak through your own voice. That's why you don't sound like anyone else. And the fact that you were given a fingerprint that no one else in the history of humankind has ever had or ever will have lets you know you've already got something no one else has.
Mm.
So that's where you start. And at first, it may not be that good. You just got to keep doing it, right? And as you're doing it, allow music to be on your side. Use music. We don't have to create it, right? We just have to create our version of it. Music's already there. So if you keep your spirit open, music spirit will talk to you. And all of a sudden, the ideas will start to flow. And they will be your ideas. Even if it sounds like someone else's idea, spoken and played through your voice, comes out as your idea. Bob Franceschini. What's up, Bob? Unmute yourself if you can. Come on, bring Bob back. Bring Bob back. Let's see, how do we do this? This is one of the best musicians in the world with his own voice on sax. There he is.
What's up?
What's up, Bob?
Hey, Steve, Mark. Hey,
What's up, man?
Yo,
Everyone, this is Bob Franceschini, one of the greatest saxophone players ever. If anyone knows my last record that I've recorded, it's called Tripnotics. It was just a trio: drums, bass, and saxophone. Well, this is Bob Franceschini. Bob Franceschini, great saxophone player who has played with everybody, right? Played with everybody.
I've been around forever.
So, Bob, I'm sure you may have been hearing any thoughts about anything we've said so far.
To this conversation of the last 15 minutes. And that last question, I felt like I had something that could really contribute to this thing in the sense that, what can young musicians do? What's the direction to take to try to get this to change a bit? And I just wanted to share one quick story, which Victor was there, and he brought me to meet an engineer by the name of Gus Skinnis, who was directly involved in the creation of CDs. And the guy's a super genius. And Victor brought me there so I could hear his own version of digital music, which was, of course, the sample rate was off the scale compared to a CD. And, so I didn't really have any expectations. I figured it'd be a little bit closer to digital. I mean, closer to analog or something, So we sat down, he put on a record, which was Joni Mitchell. It's like a orchestra record, one of the last things she did with
the London Philharmonic.
With the London Phil and Wayne Shorter. So I'm sitting there in his home studio, listening, and all of a sudden, about halfway in, I'm starting to get kind of emotional about it, because it's just touching me in a way that I hadn't really felt in a long time from a recording. And suddenly Wayne Shorter just peers out from behind a tree and just starts putting some sounds and colors into this thing. And I welled up, I started crying uncontrollably. I was like, oh, snap. And he taps me on the shoulder. He goes, don't worry, everybody cries there. Everybody cries in that same spot. So it's my point is that I think a part of the answer is for young musicians to bring the technology up to what it's like when you hear live music, but it takes listening to a lot of live music to be able to try to somehow shape it so that it sounds more like, the experience of of going to hear music, you know, and so that gets deep in itself. But I have like faith that the technology is gonna somehow turn around a little bit so that it gets closer and people can start to appreciate it more. Because there's definitely a loss, you know. And to end this, Gus sent me this player that plays his files, and it blew me away. And just my kids were sitting around and they see me like freaking out with headphones on. What are you listening to? And I was listening to A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. He had transferred that over to his system. And I was going to play it for them just for a second so they could hear what was happening. They sat there and listened to the entire, both of them, each of them sat there and listened to the entire album, beginning to end, smiling, you know, ear to ear, smile the whole time. Mm-hmm. So for whatever it's worth, I just want to add that to, you know, that I think that when young minds can come to come together and understand that what they have now really is not getting the quality that music can possibly, you know, reach people when it's like a live experience, but closer to that. You know? So anyway.
I love that example, and I write exactly that, but a different example. In the first chapter of the book, and I call them, instead of chapters, I call them measures. So the very opening measure we call the prelude of the book, it talks about Gus. Now, I don't mention Gus's last name. I don't mention anybody's last names throughout the books, but everybody is patterned after or inspired by a real person. And just to help people understand that story, Gus is an engineer in Colorado. Gus helped invent what we call the DAW, the digital audio workstation. It's what I'm sitting in front of. It's what allows us to sorry, wrong screen. You can kind of see all this stuff, you know. The digital workstation, Gus helped invent to make recording easier for everyone. But Gus doesn't like it. He says, we quit too soon. We got it working, but the quality, it's missing. And so Gus kept working while the rest of everything stood still. And as I mentioned earlier, the leading recording processors or recording devices will record 192,000 pieces of information in a second, 192K. Gus's thing will record close to 3 million. It's still digital, but he found a way of packing it with more stuff in it. And anytime I'm with a musician or even a normal person who doesn't play music, if I'm with someone in Colorado, I take them to see Gus. And I just sit back and wait for them to start crying. Because it happened to me. And we just say, hey, Gus, you know, put Joni Mitchell on. And I tell the story of a female violinist. In the beginning of the book, I tell the story of a female violinist who I took there, and Gus played that, and she's sitting there, and she just she just had this wrap on her, and she took the wrap off and put her arms out because she said she could just feel the music caressing her skin. The first time our friend Satir took me to Gus's house, I was like you, Bob. I sat there kind of embarrassed, fighting back tears. And I couldn't hold them in because I'm sitting there thinking, I'm an award-winning musician, a Grammy-winning musician, celebrated. And even I forgot that this is what it's supposed to sound like. I forgot you're not just supposed to hear this music. You're supposed to feel it floating over your skin and throughout your body. I forgot that. And I'm sitting there crying like, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, music. I forgot, you know, so I'm doing everything I can to bring us back to that. Old age, young age, we need to get back to where we don't just hear music in headphones by ourselves. We feel music.
Hey, Vic, don't you think another big part of it is the way we listen to music now? It's a solo opportunity. Everybody has their phone or whatever. But I remember the day when listening to music was like going to a concert. You'd hang out with people you're playing with, a bunch of people, and you'd put on a record or put on something, and everybody would listen together, and everybody would move together, and everybody would talk about it together, just like we do with live music these days.
Right.
And that just doesn't exist anymore. I encourage it. You know, we even had a class at Berkeley where the whole it wasn't a class for credit, but it was an elective that you could go in and listen to vinyl an hour a day and talk about it with other people. It's just not done. It's worthy of a credit. I mean, just to get people in there.
Yeah. I love that class because not only would the students listen to vinyl, they'd pass around the album jacket and
And
take
read
turns
it.
reading it, right?
Yeah.
But you know, again, here I am sounding like the old guy. This is how it was when I was a kid, and I hate that. But you know, when we were younger, to buy a record in the first place, it was already special if anybody had the money to buy it. Sometimes we had to, like, you know, get some money. Hey, yo, Mark, you know, you got a quarter? I just need a quarter. And then we go spend this hard-earned money to get this record. So even before we put it on, it was special.
Right.
Nowadays, it's just not as special, you know. And I know I sound like the old guy, and I am, but I don't like the fact that we don't specialize music anymore. Right? We'll specialize a show on TV, you know, but not music. When the studies are showing that we need to change that thought, but we have to do it on our own. Yeah, Bob.
Just a quickie, just to sound old, but record stores used to be where you walked in, they would play the record and you would see what was playing. You know, they put the cover up. And a really good friend of mine, really amazing arranger named Marty Scheller, he told me a story that there was a record store on Broadway up near Columbia University. And they would go in there to hear like the latest jazz records, and the guy was hip, the guy who was DJing and play like the latest stuff. And he said that he was, they were listening to Giant Steps. This is 1959 or 1960, right? They're listening to Giant Steps and they're like falling down. I mean, like they're just freaking out listening to this. And Cannonball Adderley came walking through the door.
Wow.
He said that he almost fell over when he heard it. Like he had to hold on and just just started shaking his head saying, oh my God, you know, just that experience, you know, of the listening experience like that, you know, is so powerful, and it's definitely lacking, you know. I remember listening to We Want Miles when that came out at Bobby Broom's house. I think Victor Bailey was there. It was a bunch of people, Poogie, Bell, I think, and we were listening to We Want Miles, like Bobby Broom had bought the LP. And we put that on and we were like, every note Miles played just sounded like it just tore us open. You know, every phrase, every note, we just lived it as we listened to it that first time. You know, I remember that.
Wow.
Plus Marcus was on it, and he was a good friend of ours, and we were like freaking out because Marcus sounded so good. And Al Foster were just like, oh, dang. They just sounded like they were just like this, you know. Anyway, I got to run, but it's good to see you guys.
Thank you, Bob.
Hang out. We're both in Staten Island, I think. You're still in if you're still in Staten Island. One of these days, we gotta hang. There's some jams and stuff.
I would never admit that.
Nice.
All right. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bob.
All right. Be good.
Yes.
Talk to you soon.
Bob Franceschini, an amazing horn player. He's played on a bunch of my own records, but he's played on records for everybody. You know, Celia Cruz, he's played with George Benson, J-Lo, Paul Simon, everybody. And he also runs a camp, runs a saxophone camp called the Inside Outside Sax Retreat. So, of course, all of our camps are at a hold right now, but we've been doing things online. So any horn players out there, check out the Inside Outside Sax Retreat. we don't have a whole lot of time, but I've been enjoying this discussion, catching up with Mark. I haven't seen in a while. Steve, I haven't seen in person, but we're online quite a bit. Just for fun, I'm going to play something. There is an audio version of this new book, The Spirit of Music, and it will be released very soon. And I know my friend Brandon, who asked a question in the chat, you won't hear his voice tonight, but if you get the audio book, that'll be out soon, you'll hear his voice, because in all the cases where people were inspired by, that inspired my characters, I had them come in and read their parts. So Brandon, who inspired the character, Brandon, came in and read his part. Like in the music lesson, the main teacher, Michael, was inspired by a good friend of mine, Michael Cott. So Michael read that part. My character, Uncle Clyde, who is a older, wise man. My pattern for him, my inspiration for him, was a great bass player named Chuck Rainey. So Chuck, who's in his 80s now, he read the part of Uncle Clyde. So it's a lot of fun. In the new book, on the new audio book, I'll go back. In the first book, my mom was the voice of music. In the new book, on the audio book, India Ari, great vocalist, one of my favorite ever. She is the voice of music. So you'll hear her singing at times. There's a great soul blues man named Keb Mo, plays guitar, sings, a wonderful musician. He is the voice of my dad. And I'm going to play a clip right now where you hear my character talking to my mom and my dad. And you'll hear Keb Mo as my dad, and you'll hear my aunt, which is my mom's younger sister, my Aunt Odelphus. You'll hear her voice as my mom. And I think in this piece, you might even hear some keyboards, but if so, that'll be my brother Joseph. And the way I do the audiobooks is I have a lot of music. I score it like a movie. And even in the new one, in both the music lesson as well as the Spirit of Music, you'll hear bass from Steve Bailey. You'll hear some bass from great bassists with the Chick Corea Band, and Wayne Shorter. John Patitucci is on the new book. Great ukulele player Jake Shimabukuro. Bakiti Kumalo, Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. A lot of music all over the audiobook, so a lot of fun to listen to. But here's a clip. Steve, give me a thumbs up if this comes through. I'm not sure I've got all the right buttons pushed, but I'm going to play this piece of music, and we'll see if it comes through. Let me know, Mr. Bailey. Here we go. This is a clip that I call Parents, I think it's Parents Know Best or something like that. I can't remember. Let's see what happens. Let's see if this comes through. Something's spinning. Hold on. All right. Hold on. Let me get it right. Let's see if I can find the right clip. I thought I had it, but it's not happening. I'm not as together as I was on my first webinar where I got to play some stuff. I got the wrong clip. Looking for the right clip. Mom and Dad. I'm looking for Mom and Dad. Well, we may not hear it tonight. I tell you what, until I can find it, if I can find it, we'll just look at it. We'll take another question because I'm not hearing it at the moment.
Hey, Vic, can I? There's a question.
Let's see. What else does someone talk about, Steve, up here?
Kevin Latau. Now, I saved you because I knew you would take that name and it wouldn't turn out well. It's Kevin Latau. And when I looked down, I couldn't believe it. I had deja vu from decades ago. And she's asking a question. She says she's a singer. What she leaves out is she's one of the best singers in the world. And I heard her for years out in LA when I lived out there in amazing duets with Peter Sprague and all kinds of people, her albums, Brazilian albums. But Vic, if you ever get to hear Kevin Littau sing, you will hear one of the most rhythmic, grooving singers ever. Her time is amazing. But anyway, there she, I hope it's the same person, because I just blew up when I saw that name, and there can't be many Kevin Littaus in the world.
Well, I want to hear it now. You got me going. Yeah. What was Kevin was saying? She's a singer, and the 10 elements of music that I talk about are wonderful. Are there a few more you can mention that would be helpful? So yeah, a good question. The 10 elements of music is what my book, The Music Lesson, was based on. And it's based on a lesson that I've been sharing with students for many years, where I break music up into 10 equal parts: notes, articulation and duration, technique, tone, phrasing, emotion, feel, dynamics, rhythm, space, or rest, as well as listening. And it's just interesting. I was talking with some people about it today, so I still have it written up on the board. But where and my thought in the lesson that I usually teach is that most of our music education is based on notes. And there's only 12 notes, so we're trying to speak this vast language and we're only using 12 words and wondering why it's difficult. But if you use all of these elements, articulation, right? When someone speaks clearly, they're articulate. Or you can have a note that's, pointed and or a dole, or you hold it long or short. Technique, tone, phrasing, all of these things that we have to go on. If we use all of these tools, music is a whole lot easier to speak, because I'm not just relying on notes. And like I like to say, nobody's dancing to the notes anyway, right? I don't get up to dance because the song's in the key of E flat. That's my key. I got to dance. Doesn't happen. We dance to the feel of the song, the rhythm of the song. So it's a lot more than just the notes. And anyway, to answer that question, Kevin, about are there more? Absolutely, there are more. But I gave you 10. I want you to figure it out, because when you combine these, you start to figure out more. When you combine these, in other words, I can change my technique and it'll change the feel. Right? The same way you can take a major chord, but you can change the note and it'll change the feel. So what do you call that? So yeah, there's a whole lot of different elements, right? Communication is one, how you communicate with your audience. That's not in my list, but I have actual, like that's my 1 through 10 list, but I have a 1 through 10 of each of the 1 through 10. In other words, if the title is notes, notes can be scales, harmony, intervals, modes, chords, we can go on and on, but I can look at rhythm in the same thing, because I've even heard people in sports talk about, man, I found my rhythm tonight, or I lost my rhythm. And rhythm is very closely related to what we call the zone. I'm just in the zone, right? Car mechanics talk about the engine's rhythm. So rhythm's more than just how beats go across the page or make you dance. So all of them can be deeper. And I would urge you, Kevin Littau, to go through those and find out what you come up with. I got you started, right? I got you started. So there's someone in the chat that says they've been to a few of our workshops and been a fan and admirer of many years and been in touch with spirit my whole life. And I can play 2 notes and it lifts my soul. C and B come to mind. They sparkle. I've been a professional musician 20 years. My favorite gig right now is teaching preschool music. Is this Brandon? Who wrote that? Sounds like Brandon. No, this is Nigel. All right. I'm lucky to be in person right now, meaning they're teaching in person. They see my fingers move. I pitch the songs correctly for their voices and to hear them sing. Let me see if I can get to the end of this. To play music was not normal. Now music class is their favorite time of the week. The kids are hungry. How can more creative musicians get in places where we can get in touch with and inspire children? I want to hear everybody's thought on this, but I'll start with my own because it's not my own. There was a Native American who has since passed on. I have a lot of friends who are into nature and they teach native skills, how to live off the land. bird language. When grandma used to say, "Oh, a little birdie told me," we just thought that was a saying. We don't realize that birds are actually communicating, and you can learn to understand what they're saying. And I'm not being facetious. I mean, really, you can learn their language. And I have friends who do that. But they were talking to this native elder, and they were asking the elder, how can we get more kids into the outdoors? Kids want to stay inside and play video games. And how can we get them more outside and into nature? And the native's answer was simple and complex at the same time. He said, just go outside and have more fun than they're having inside. Mm. And that was it. But what he was saying is lead by example. Right? That wasn't his words, but it was mine now. Lead by example. If you want someone to follow you, become worth following. Right? Become something that is worth, right? We focus on the other person. I already got it. I need to change you. No, just become it. And then we will take notice. And then if you're having more fun than I'm having inside, I'm going to come outside to see what you're doing. And then you got me, right? So go outside and have more fun than they're having. Any thoughts on that? Any of you guys? The kids are hungry. How can we get more creative musicians to get in places where we can get in touch with and inspire children? Any thoughts about that?
Only thing I would say, Vic, is people are reluctant to reach out sometimes. I mean, I've seen it with schools where a music director or band director is so reluctant to reach out. I just encourage anybody who feels that way who reach out to people. This is the best time ever, for better or worse, and there's better and worse from it. But COVID has us not traveling, not doing gigs, and a lot of time on our hands. But as my mom used to say, and you will never know until you ask. And the worst thing they can say is no.
Nice. I think that's true. That's true. We'd be surprised what people will offer up, if you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially now, since everybody's at home, everyone will get online and speak to students or whatever, I will say this for myself. I'm reluctant to show up at your class right now. All right. I'm not looking to get in big groups right now. I had to go out today to a bookstore, sign some books.
You mean show up in person?
Oh, I mean in person.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you for helping with that. I mean in person. I'll show up anywhere right now through this camera. But, for me, I'm just one of those people that I want to stay safe. And if I'm going out, like I had to go out and sign some books today, had my hand sanitizer, had my double mask on, kept my distance.
Did you see any phasers out there?
I don't want to be a phaser. Yeah. So, but yeah, just reach out to people, and that's a good thing to do. So, I'm going to try this clip right here and see if this works. This is a clip. Steve, give me a thumbs up if you hear it or not. But this is something that features Kebmo as my dad, my aunt Odelphus as my mom, and hopefully you will hear some keys in this. And this is a little clip, a little thing that I call Mom and Dad Speak Their Minds. And what's happening in this clip is, and then we're going to have to get out of here, I think, because we've been here for an hour, and you know how long-winded I get. But in the beginning of the book, my character is getting bombarded by music. Music is speaking, but my character's really trying to ignore music. And so to escape and to clear my mind, I drive from Nashville, Tennessee to Virginia to speak with my parents, who are always the fixers of all things. And so again, you'll hear my Aunt Odelphus, and you will hear the great Kebmo. Let's see if this works. Let me know, Mr. Steve. Let's see. Come on, play.
Mom listened intently, barely moving a muscle as I spoke.
She had a special gift of making one feel as if they were being heard without being judged. When I finished, she corroborated my story.
Yeah, you're right. Music is sick. I can tell you that for sure.
Her response shocked me. Really? You believe that?
It's more than a belief. I noticed it long ago when they started letting them bands play in the church. My mother dreamed about it and told them not to do it. She said bad things would happen if they let them folks play. Ain't but singing supposed to be in Living Hope Church.
Why didn't Grandma want instruments in the church? Is there something wrong with instruments?
Ain't nothing wrong with instruments. The problem is the people. When people sing, they sing from the inside. When they play instruments, they play from the outside. That don't belong in Living Hope. Mother always say, if you want to play outside, then stay outside. I agree with Mother.
Well, I can't argue with that,
Well, you best not argue with anything I say.
she countered with a chuckle.
Oh, that's
My mom grew up in the eastern part of North Carolina, and her speech reverted to that vernacular every time her mind went back there.
If Mother dreamt it, you best listen. All us kids knew that and never questioned it. Young folks today, y'all don't like to listen.
She concluded. I hoped she wasn't referring to me. When my mom was little, their family was governed by her mother's dreams. And when her mother's warnings weren't heeded, the consequences were never good. But what about music talking to me? Isn't that kind of strange?
That ain't nothing but the good Lord talking to you. He comes in all shapes and sizes. You just know how to listen to music better than you listen to anything else. That's why you hear him that way.
Really? You think so? I never thought about it like that.
You questioning me?
She asked with a smile. No, Ma, definitely not. What should I do then?
Listen, child. Listen to him or her or whatever title you want to use. That don't matter. Just listen to what music is telling you.
She answered emphatically.
That's why your stomach's churning all to pieces. You ain't been listening. And you know as well as I do that you need to start.
Just then, my dad walked back into the kitchen. Apparently, he'd been listening the whole time.
And since you made a promise to do something about it, you best get to it,
he said as he placed his empty dish in the sink. He pulled up a chair and joined us at the table. But why me? Why is music talking to me?
Because you's a musician, son.
My father answered, grabbing Mom's hand.
Don't seem to be many of them left.
I looked up at him. His expression was serious. What do you mean?
I mean musicians. Real musicians. Yeah, we got lots of people playing instruments these days, but ain't many of them playing music.
That sounded familiar. How do I know if I'm a real musician?
Be what you are. To be a real musician, you can't just play. You also have to listen. Listen to everything, but most of all, listen to your heart. That's the best way for music to reach you, through your heart. Not just your senses.
He ain't got to worry about that, because he ain't got no sense.
Dad joked. Yeah, so that's just a clip from the audiobook. I just enjoy listening to that because it makes me think about my mom and my dad with two of my friends' voices. So, we should probably get on out of here. I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone's questions. I appreciate you, Anthony Green, for your questions, and Kevin, Kobe, and Brandon Blake. And interesting that there's Nigel is a preschool teacher, and I suggest, Nigel, that you hook up with Brandon Blake because you all are in the same world. Brandon Blake is here. You guys need to exchange info and keep in touch because I'm sure you two could help each other. And I'll just apologize for myself if I sound like the old guy that's complaining about how it used to be when I was young. I don't mean it that way. I've seen a lot of great musicians, a lot of great young musicians, and I do believe that music is in good hands. But I also do believe, even for the reason of writing this book, is that there are some questions that need to be raised before we go too far down the rabbit hole in the wrong direction. In the same sense that I said before, I can buy a liter of Coke cheaper than I can buy an 8-ounce bottle of water. That's something that needs to be looked at. Why are we doing that? And music seems to be headed down in the same direction. But we still have bands like The Roots, who, in my opinion, play what I call real music. It's not based on frills and tricks. You know, it's just good music. And I love the fact that with good music, the Roots have risen to the top. Everybody knows their name. And and with that happening in this day and age, it lets me know what is possible with music. And I appreciate it. So I appreciate you being here, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Anything
me.
you want to leave people with before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I feel like I said what
You know what, Mark? Oh, keep going. Sorry. I have to change my channel. I couldn't hear you.
No problem. I feel like I said what I would say in any situation, which is just, you know, follow your calling, you know, play your instrument, be be an example, never be too good to play anything anywhere. You know, just when it comes to playing music, just be a yes person. Go play, learn, enjoy, have fun, and try your best to inspire.
I love that. Mr. Bailey, any thoughts?
Always great to join you and listen and listen to your aunt and hear your mom in my mind and listen to Kevmo and hear your dad. Both voices I know very well. No, I don't want anybody in the audience who's young to hold it against Victor because he used the word cassette. And in case you don't know what that is, or have only heard about it, but we're all young at heart, and I just get back to the authenticity part. I really think that if people look inward and try to sound like them or whatever they're feeling, rather than worrying about what somebody else is feeling, I think we'll all be in a better place, because a lot of music's being made with one thing in mind, and that's either hits on YouTube or money. And we'll get back to just good cooking, I hope, not smorgasbords.
I like it. And I'll end it with this, is that, and you don't have to give me this answer, but if you think of what music is to you, for example, fill in the blank. Music is, and you fill in the blank. You know, I have an idea of what some of your answers might be, but I also have a good idea of what your answers won't be. No one will say that music is scales. Music is notes. Music is theory. Or music is a bass guitar. Music is a piano. No. You'll say that music is life. Music is inspiring, communication, all of these beautiful words. So I say, once you realize what music is to you, play that. Even if you don't play, hear that, feel that. If you teach, especially if you teach kids, teach that. You're not teaching an instrument, you're teaching music. And you're teaching them how to express through an instrument. The instrument is not the goal. Expressing music is the goal. In the same way that if you're going to teach a kid a language, you don't teach them how to work their mouth. You teach them what to say. You don't even have to teach them what to say. You just help them find a way to say it. Because a language is about what is said and communicated. It's not about the instrument. So if we teach more music, we can teach less tools, less instruments, less scales, right? So if you think about what music is to you, that's what we're after. And I believe that's what music wants us to feel. That's what music is offering. The instrument is not musical. When I sit my bass down, it doesn't make a sound. It only makes a sound when I touch it. That lets me know I'm musical. It only makes a sound when you touch it. that lets you know that you're musical. Our goal is to be musical. And we start by feeling it and hearing it. And if you need some help, I know a book that'll help you. You can check out The Spirit of Music, and it might give you a little head start down that road. Just, be aware it may poke at you a little bit, but ain't nothing wrong with that. I thank you all. I thank Powerhouse Arena for allowing us this opportunity to speak to you. And I definitely thank you all out there for listening to us. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. I'll just close it out real quick. Thank you so much. So much truth being told here. I love the preview of the audiobook. Thank you, Victor, Mark, Steve, Bob. Got a cameo. Everyone who asked questions. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody. Still buy a copy if you haven't yet. And if you missed the event, we'll get it on YouTube. Thank you.
That's right. And hey, support your local bookstores, okay? As well as if you got a record store left, support them too. But we got to support local, all right? Thank you all. Peace.
Thank you.